Some betrayals don't start with secrets. They start with certainty, with the quiet belief that someone will always be there, steady, loyal, absorbing the weight so you don't have to. Maya woke before dawn, the house still wrapped in darkness. She lay still for a moment, listening. The low hum of the refrigerator down the hall, distant traffic far away, Daniel's breathing beside her, steady, even, familiar in a way that once brought her comfort. She slipped out of bed carefully. Daniel slept on his back now, arms loose at his sides, turned slightly away from her. He hadn't always slept like that. In the early years of their marriage, he used to face her even when he was exhausted. He would reach for her in his sleep without waking, fingers curling into the fabric of her shirt, pulling her closer as if it were instinct. Sometimes, just before drifting off, he would kiss her temple. Sometimes he'd murmur, "Come here," and tuck her against his chest, like the world made more sense when she was there. Those moments had faded so gradually, she hadn't known when to grieve them. The alarm was set for 6:15. She knew that without checking. Maya moved quietly into the kitchen, bare feet silent against the tile. She'd started preparing the night before, knowing Daniel had a long day ahead. Meetings stacked back to back, a presentation he'd mentioned in passing. 2 loaves of dough waited on the counter, one soft and enriched for breakfast, one heartier for sandwiches. She liked knowing his meals would feel intentional from start to finish. As the bread baked, warmth filled the kitchen. She whisked eggs and cream for French toast, adding cinnamon carefully, the exact way he preferred it. On the stove, berries simmered into a glossy compote. She stirred slowly, tasting, adjusting. She plated breakfast with care. Thick slices of French toast, crisped gold. Compote spooned neatly on top. Napkins folded. A mug placed at his seat. Not because it was a special day, because she wanted his morning to feel easier. She built his lunch the same way. Sandwich layered carefully, homemade chips, a small dessert wrapped in parchment. Before closing the container, she reached for her pen. She had been leaving notes for years. Nothing dramatic, just reminders that someone was thinking of him. She paused, then wrote, "I know today will be long. I hope this helps. I love you." She folded it once and slid it inside. At 6:15, the alarm buzzed faintly. Maya walked back down the hall and silenced it before it could fully ring, something she'd been doing for years. Daniel stirred, but didn't turn toward her. He reached for his phone. "Morning," he said, distracted. "Morning," she replied. Once, he would have pulled her back down beside him. Once, he would have asked what she was making. Now, he scrolled. In the kitchen, his attention skimmed the room without landing anywhere. "Smells good," he said absently. She waited. He poured coffee, took a sip, grabbed his keys. She nudged the lunch container toward him. "You'll want this later." "Oh, right." He picked it up without opening it. "Thanks." He didn't sit. He didn't notice the note. The door closed behind him, the sound lingering in the quiet kitchen. Maya stood there, staring at the untouched breakfast. They had been married 8 years, long enough to see the changes clearly. Daniel hadn't always been careless with her. In the early years, he noticed her effort, thanked her, looked at her like she was someone he didn't want to lose. Now, he moved through their life like it existed to serve him. She compensated the way she always had, by giving more. She told herself this was just what marriage became over time, quieter, less attentive, steadier. But steadiness shouldn't feel like loneliness. The shift came quietly. Daniel started coming home with energy instead of exhaustion, smiling at his phone, laughing at messages he didn't share. One night, She noticed his jacket smelled faintly unfamiliar. Good night? She asked. Yeah, he said. Work thing. The smile stayed on his face longer than it ever did with her. That night, lying awake beside him, Maya replayed years of moments she had explained away. She wasn't angry. She was understanding something. She didn't know there was another woman yet. She didn't know her name. But she knew, with the certainty that settled deep in her chest, that the man beside her had stopped choosing her. And worse, he believed she would keep choosing him anyway. Daniel's work had always mattered to him. Maya had respected that. She understood ambition. In the early years of their marriage, she'd admired how driven he was. But somewhere along the way, his work stopped being something he did and became somewhere he belonged. She saw it most clearly at events. The dinners, the mixers, the polished rooms where Daniel stood taller, laughed louder, spoke with ease. People leaned in when he talked. Maya stayed close, but not too close. Supportive without intruding. That was how she first noticed Sienna. She wasn't introduced dramatically, just a name that surfaced more often than others. Sienna worked alongside Daniel, competent, efficient, easy to like. At one event, Sienna handed Daniel a coffee. I remembered you said you skipped lunch, she said lightly. Daniel's face lit up. Wow, thank you. That's really thoughtful. The words settled heavily in Maya's chest. She told herself it meant nothing. But Sienna kept appearing, remembering details, laughing easily, staying late. None of it was inappropriate. That was the hard part. Later, Daniel mentioned her casually. Sienna's sharp, reliable. Maya nodded. He didn't ask if she'd enjoyed the night. At home, he went straight to his phone. The pattern repeated. When Sienna remembered something, Daniel noticed. When Maya remembered everything, it was expected. Maya didn't feel jealous. She felt displaced, like the effort she'd poured into their lives had become invisible, while the same effort, mirrored back by someone else, suddenly had weight again. She didn't confront him, she observed, and something in her shifted. Daniel began mentioning Sienna more often, not dramatically, casually, as if her name belonged in the rhythm of his life. Sienna had a good idea. Sienna stayed late. Sienna's really considerate. Considerate. The word landed heavily. Maya thought about the bread, the notes, the mornings he no longer noticed. She said nothing. When Daniel bought Sienna an expensive birthday gift, remembered her preferences, planned ahead, something settled in Maya's chest. He hadn't forgotten how to be thoughtful. He had decided who was worth the effort. That night, lying beside him, Maya understood something painful and final. What she was losing wasn't just her marriage. It was the illusion that love alone can make someone choose you. Daniel chose Sienna's side in small ways. If Maya expressed discomfort, he called it insecurity. If she asked questions, he called it exhausting. When Sienna needed reassurance, he showed up. Maya learned the rules quickly. Don't question, don't need. She began choosing silence the way she once chose effort. One evening, Daniel came home to a quiet house. Dinner wasn't waiting. You didn't cook? He asked. I wasn't hungry, Maya said. He stood there, uncertain, then made something for himself. For the first time, Maya didn't feel guilty. She felt awake. The truth didn't arrive dramatically. It came the way everything else had, quietly. Daniel's phone buzzed while he was in the shower. Once. Then again. The screen lit up. Sienna. And then, just long enough to register before it disappeared, I miss you. Daniel said it was work. Maya nodded. That night, the pieces slid into place without emotion. Not anger, certainty. The next day, she noticed his calendar. Recurring late meetings, a private address, a note attached to one entry. Don't forget overnight bag. Maya closed the laptop gently. The marriage she had been trying to save no longer existed. It had already been replaced. She just hadn't been told. And now that she knew, one thing became clear. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the end of his comfort. Daniel left his laptop open again, not because he trusted Maya, because he didn't think about her enough to be careful. Maya was carrying a mug of coffee past the dining table when the screen shifted, an email notification disappearing, a calendar block sliding into place, and then a message banner flashing briefly in the corner. She didn't stop on purpose. Her body stopped before her mind did. A single line, clean and casual. Last night was worth the wait. No emoji, no softening. Maya's fingers tightened around the mug handle. The coffee sloshed slightly. For 3 seconds, she just stared, waiting for her brain to reject it. It didn't. She reached out and shut the laptop with 2 fingers, careful, like the hinge might make noise loud enough to wake the life she'd been living. Then she walked back to the kitchen and set her mug down. Not gently. It clinked against the counter. At 2:17 p.m., she logged into their shared account to pay a routine bill. She didn't go looking for proof. She went looking for normal. The balance loaded. Groceries, gas, streaming subscriptions. Then something else. The Marlowe Hotel downtown. One night, boutique rate, no corporate discount. The date matched yesterday. Maya took screenshots, downloaded the statement, made a folder. Personal records. Inside it, another folder. Bank statements. Her hands didn't shake. They moved the way they always did when something mattered. This wasn't an accident. This was a pattern. Daniel came home at 11:38 p.m. Maya heard the key turn slowly, like he was trying to enter without disturbing the air. She was on the couch with the book open on her lap. She hadn't read a single page. Daniel stepped inside, glanced toward the living room, then smiled like nothing was wrong. "Hey," he said quietly. Maya looked up. "Hey." He moved too casually, kicking off his shoes, setting his keys down, loosening his tie with a practiced tug meant to look normal. But there were small things he couldn't fake. The faint scent on his jacket, clean citrus layered with something floral. Not her detergent, not his cologne. Maya kept her eyes on his face, not the jacket. If she looked at it too long, she might do something impulsive. She might become someone she didn't recognize. Daniel walked past her toward the kitchen. "You eat?" he asked, opening the fridge. "Yeah." He exhaled, relieved. He stared at the fridge shelf like it might offer guidance. You okay?" he asked without turning. Maya watched his back. "I'm fine," she said. Daniel nodded too quickly. "Long day," he added. "Mm-hmm." He shut the fridge, didn't take anything. "Gonna shower," he said. He didn't kiss her. He didn't come close enough for her to feel his body heat. Maya listened to the shower start, then run longer than usual, water working overtime like it could rinse off his choices. When he came out, hair damp, skin flushed from heat, he avoided looking at her. He climbed into bed, rolled onto his back, and fell asleep. And that, more than anything, turned her stomach. Because sleep like that required peace. The kind of peace you only have when you believe you've gotten away with something. Tuesday came 4 days later. Daniel waited until dinner was halfway finished, until Maya had already swallowed too much to leave easily. He cleared his throat. Maya kept chewing. "I need to talk to you," he said. Maya set her fork down. "Okay." His knee bounced under the table. He reached for his glass, drank too quickly, set it down too hard. "There's something going on," he said. Maya didn't help him. "Sienna's pregnant." The silence wasn't dramatic. It was dead. Maya didn't gasp, didn't flinch. Daniel blinked, thrown by her calm, and hurried forward like he needed her reaction to know where to stand. "She told me yesterday," he said. "It's early, but the timing—" "How long?" Maya asked. Daniel hesitated. A few months, he said. Maya nodded. Daniel rushed on, words spilling out, rehearsed, practiced, defensive. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't plan it. Things just got complicated. We were working late, and you were distant, and I was stressed, and Maya lifted one hand. Not sharp, just enough. He stopped. You're talking like this is the weather, she said. What? Daniel frowned. Like, like it just happened to you, she said. Like you were just standing still when it hit. Daniel's jaw tightened. Maya, I already knew, she said. Daniel froze. What do you mean you knew? Maya stood and carried her plate to the sink. Not angrily, like she was finished eating. I saw her message, she said. I saw the hotel charge. Daniel's face drained. I didn't go through your phone, she added calmly. You left your laptop open. Your life is sloppy now. Daniel swallowed. I'm sorry, he said softly. I never meant to hurt you. Maya tilted her head, considering the sentence for accuracy. I don't think you thought about me at all, she said. He flinched. What do you want me to do? He asked. Tell me what to do. Maya looked at him, and for the first time, he saw it. The absence of hope. Leave, she said. Tonight? Yes. He waited for negotiation. It didn't come. Maya opened the hallway closet and pulled out a spare duffel bag. She set it on the table. You can come back for the rest later, she said, with notice. Daniel stared at the bag like it was a verdict. He packed quickly, then carefully. When he came back with the bag, he looked older. He stepped toward her, like he might touch her arm. Maya shifted just enough that he didn't. I didn't, he started. Don't, she said gently. Not now. Daniel nodded. He walked out. The door clicked shut. Maya didn't collapse. She stood very still. Then she exhaled, long and slow, like her lungs had been holding someone else's breath for years. Daniel officially moved out 2 days later. Not because Maya rushed him, because Sienna did. She framed it carefully, not as an ultimatum, but as concern. I just don't want stress, she said. It's not good for the baby. Daniel heard what she meant. He found an apartment quickly, furnished, temporary. He told himself it was responsible, that stability mattered more than comfort. At work, the news traveled faster than expected. Not because anyone gossiped, but because he stopped pretending. He and Sienna arrived together, left together, sat closer in meetings that included both their departments. People noticed. At the next company mixer, Maya didn't attend. That absence said more than her presence ever had. Daniel stood beside Sienna in a room Maya used to navigate effortlessly, smiling politely, making conversation, holding space without demanding it. Sienna filled that space differently. She held his arm, touched his wrist when she laughed, spoke for him when conversation slowed. Daniel told himself this was what choosing looked like: responsibility, forward motion. At night, the apartment felt temporary in ways he hadn't expected. Sienna rearranged his kitchen, critiqued his furniture, commented on his routines like they were habits she planned to correct. We'll need more space soon, she said one evening, resting a hand against her stomach. Daniel nodded. He began sleeping lightly. Sienna monitored everything: what he ate, how late he stayed at work, which meetings he attended. I just want us to start this right, she said. Daniel didn't question her tone. He mistook vigilance for care. And when he felt a tightening in his chest, a sense that he had traded peace for obligation, he silenced it. That was what stepping up looked like. He told himself that often enough to believe it. Sienna spoke about the baby carefully, not with excitement, with expectation. She talks about doctors, appointments, insurance. She talks about timing. I'm glad you're stable, she said once, not looking at him. I couldn't do this with someone unstable. Daniel absorbed the sentence without fully hearing it. He thought she meant him. He didn't ask who she wasn't talking about. Daniel went to the appointment because Sienna asked him to. She said she felt tired. He didn't argue. He stopped arguing about small things. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and citrus cleaner. The screen flickered to life, gray and indistinct, until the technician adjusted the angle. Everything looks healthy, the technician said, typing quickly. You're measuring right around 14, almost 15 weeks. Daniel's chest tightened. 14? The word didn't echo. It clicked. He had met Sienna for the first time in a work setting 6 months ago. The first late night, 4 months ago. The first hotel, later than that. There was no version of the math where this worked. Sienna laughed too quickly. I was told it was earlier than that, she said. The technician shook her head, polite but certain. No, this is consistent. Silence followed, the kind that wasn't empty, just finished. Daniel nodded, because nodding was what he did now. In the car, Sienna talked about stress, about margins of error, about how women's bodies don't follow rules. Daniel watched traffic move past the windshield. He didn't interrupt. He didn't ask questions, because there were no questions left. That night, after Sienna fell asleep, Daniel opened his calendar, scrolled back. He didn't linger. He didn't negotiate with memory. The dates sat exactly where he'd left them. Daniel closed the laptop. He understood then, with a clarity that hurt more than anger, that the baby had never been his. He had simply been the most convenient solution. And now, leaving would make him something worse than foolish. It would make him cruel. So he stayed. Maya didn't mark the days after Daniel left. She didn't count them. She moved through them the way she had learned to move through everything else, steadily, without ceremony. The house felt strange at first, too quiet in the morning, too loud at night. She found herself reaching for habits that no longer belonged to anyone, setting out 2 mugs, buying food she didn't crave, pausing before bedtime as if someone else might still be arriving. She stopped doing these things one by one, not bitterly, just deliberately. The notes stopped first, then the early alarms, then the habit of listening for keys in the door. Maya slept more deeply than she had in years, not because she was happier, but because she was no longer bracing herself. She cleaned a drawer in the kitchen, then another. She packed away things that had been chosen for compromise rather than preference. The heavy plates Daniel liked, the couch pillows he complained about. She replaced them slowly, not with anything dramatic, just pieces that felt lighter, softer, more her. Friends reached out, not all at once. Some sent messages that said nothing useful, but everything kind. Thinking of you, if you need anything. Others waited, sensing she wasn't ready yet. Maya appreciated both. She didn't tell the story in full. She didn't have to. We're separating, she said when asked. Most people didn't push, and the ones who did were gently redirected by the calm in her voice. She took long walks in the evenings, not to clear her head, but to inhabit it. She noticed things she had been too distracted to register before. The way the air cooled just after sunset, the rhythm of her own footsteps, the relief of not explaining herself to anyone. Some nights were harder than others. Grief didn't arrive in waves the way people described. It arrived in moments. An empty chair, a song she didn't skip fast enough, a memory that surfaced without warning, not of betrayal, but of intimacy. Those moments passed. Maya let them. She learned something important in that time. She had not lost herself in the marriage. She had postponed herself. And postponement, she discovered, was reversible. She returned to things she had once loved without needing permission. Reading late into the night, cooking meals based on curiosity instead of routine, sitting in silence without feeling it. Weeks passed, then months, and one morning, standing in the kitchen with sunlight cutting across the counter, Maya realized something quietly remarkable. She was not waiting anymore. Not for closure, not for an apology, not for Daniel to understand what he had done. Her life had resumed without needing his participation. And that, she understood, was not resilience. It was freedom. Maya filed the paperwork without ceremony. She signed where she was told to sign. She answered questions plainly. There was no dramatic division of assets, just the quiet untangling of a life that had already separated emotionally long before it did legally. She kept the house, not out of victory, but because it felt like an anchor she no longer needed to cut loose. When everything was finalized, she didn't celebrate. She made herself dinner, she washed the dishes, she went to bed early, and slept without dreams. The divorce finalized quietly. No dramatic arguments, no public fallout. There were no arguments about timelines, no denials, no rewritten versions of events. Maya had come prepared, and Daniel knew it. Daniel signed where he was told to sign and told himself the hardest part was over. Fatherhood arrived, not as a moment, but as a responsibility that never loosened its grip. The baby was healthy. Everyone said, everyone said that like it answered something. Life compressed. Decisions were no longer discussed, they were assumed. Sienna spoke in schedules, doctor's appointments, pickups, deadlines. We need to be on the same page, she said often. Daniel nodded. He did a lot of nodding now. The apartment filled with things he hadn't chosen. Furniture selected for durability, not comfort. Notes taped to the fridge. Calendars that tracked his obligations more closely than his thoughts. He told himself this was adulthood, that this was what stepping up looked like. The comparisons came uninvited. Daniel noticed them in the smallest moments. Mornings that began with instructions instead of quiet. Coffee made the right way, not because it was loved, but because it was monitored. Sienna corrected him casually. You didn't rinse that well. Ugh, that's not how we agreed to do it. Ugh, I already told you what time I need you home. Daniel complied. He remembered how Maya used to adjust herself around him without keeping score, how she anticipated without announcing it, how she made space feel intentional instead of managed. With Maya, silence had been rest. With Sienna, silence felt like tension waiting to be addressed. He remembered coming home tired and being fed without explanation. Remembered mornings that didn't begin with negotiation. Remembered not feeling watched. Daniel realized, slowly and painfully, that he had confused intensity for intimacy, control for care, and attention for love. By the time he understood the difference, it no longer mattered. He had already built a life where leaving would make him the villain, regardless of the truth. So he stayed. And that, he learned, was the most expensive choice of all. Maya met Aaron without expectation. A friend introduced them casually, the way grown people did when no one was trying to engineer an outcome. They talked, then talked again weeks later. There was no intensity, no urgency. What surprised her was the absence of tension. Aaron listened without waiting to speak. He noticed small things and didn't catalog them for later use. When plans changed, he adjusted. Not resentfully, not theatrically, just easily. Maya realized she wasn't bracing herself around him. She didn't rehearse sentences, didn't monitor her tone, didn't feel watched. Silence between them felt like rest, not distance. Once, when she apologized for being quiet, Aaron smiled. You don't have to fill the space, he said. I like it when it's honest. That was when Maya understood the difference. With Daniel, she had been careful. With Aaron, she was simply present. Years later, Daniel stood in the grocery store aisle of a neighborhood he had adapted to, but never chosen, staring at a shelf longer than necessary. The bread was wrong, too dense, too heavy. He reached for another loaf, hesitated, then heard his name. Daniel? He turned. Maya stood a few feet away, basket resting easily at her hip. She looked settled, not polished, not triumphant, just at ease, like someone whose life no longer required vigilance. Hi, she said. Before he could respond, a man stepped closer to her, close enough to belong there, casual enough not to announce himself. Hey, he said to Maya quietly, did you find the olives you like, or are we still debating brands? She smiled at him, not brightly, not performatively, just comfortably. I found them, she said, bottom shelf, like always. He nodded, already reaching for the basket. I'll grab the bread then. Daniel watched the exchange unfold in seconds. No checking, no correcting, no claiming, just coordination. Aaron didn't look at Daniel directly. He didn't need to. He stood beside Maya without hovering, present, not possessive. This is Aaron, Maya said lightly. Not as an announcement, just As a fact, Daniel nodded, his throat tightening around words he hadn't prepared for this version of the moment. Nice to meet you, Aaron said politely. Then his attention turned to Maya. So, he said, lowering his voice, are we still doing dinner at your place, or did you change your mind? My place, she said. I already started the sauce. Perfect, he replied. I'll clean. The sentence landed harder than anything else. Daniel felt something hollow open in his chest. He swallowed. I think about you, he said finally, because years of restraint collapsed into honesty without utility. Maya studied him for a moment, not with anger, not with nostalgia, with recognition and distance. I don't, she said gently. Daniel nodded once. I didn't realize what I had, he said. Not until it was gone. That makes sense, she replied. Aaron shifted slightly, not to interrupt, not to protect, just there. Maya smoothed her hand down her dress. Well, she said kindly, it was good to see you. And that was it. She turned, Aaron falling into step beside her without instruction, their conversation resuming mid-thought as if it had never paused. Daniel stood alone in the aisle, fluorescent lights humming above him, carts rolling past. No one noticed the moment he didn't move. No one needed to. He understood then, fully, finally, that regret didn't come from just losing her. It came from seeing exactly what she had found instead, and knowing it would never be his to touch again.